In this short piece, we explain how best practice organizations process their invoices. It may not be exactly how you'd expect. Welcome to Accounts Payable Soundbites, programs where we share tips and explain simple and complex accounts payable issues in short, concise soundbites. Alrighty, so an invoice shows up in accounts payable. We're not going to talk now about whether it gets there by email or by an invoice automation solution or perhaps the post, but whatever. The invoice is there and the processor is working on it. The first step that they do is they send it out for approval. They send it to the person who ordered the goods. When the invoice comes back approved, then they check to see if it was correct. They use the three-way match or perhaps a four-way match in a few cases. I'm not going to go into that now. We have a separate video on that. A link should appear up there momentarily. So anyway, they do their verifications and they make sure that the invoice is correct using whatever matching process the organization has in place. Now, once they've got a match and everything is correct, they schedule for payments according to the payment terms that were agreed to with the vendor. And if it's an invoice that is subject to early payment discount, then they, of course, process it as quickly as possible in order to earn the early payment discount. What if it doesn't match? Okay, that happens. Before we address discrepant invoices, let me share with you that AP Now has a free twice-a-week e-zine that alerts our readers to whenever we post new videos here, when we put new articles on our website, and also to announce new events like new webinars, which we offer quite a few of them. Details on how to sign up for this are in the show notes below. Alternatively, you can just subscribe to this channel or hit the bell at the top to be notified when we post new videos here. Now, there's a saying in accounts payable. It sounds corny, but it's actually true. And the saying goes like this: a good invoice gets a good payment. So for those billers out there who might be listening to this, who want to ensure that their invoices are good or correct, we've got directions on how you can get our little cheat sheet on this in the show notes. So when the invoice doesn't equal the purchase order or whatever, there's some discrepancy. The discrepancy must be resolved before the invoice is paid. Very few organizations will short pay an invoice because there's a whole bunch of other problems that can come up because of that. So ideally, the discrepancy is resolved before the due date and the invoice is paid on time. There are several reasons for this. Number one, paying it on the due date obviously keeps the supplier happy, but it also makes for a lot less work in the accounts payable function, because when you don't pay on time, many vendors will send a second or third invoice, which can create work. So to resolve the discrepant invoice, typically that is handled in accounts payable, and the processor involved will contact purchasing or contact the vendor, depending upon who is in the best position to resolve whatever the problem is. So ideally, you don't want to let these invoices sit if you work in accounts payable, because the sooner you get them resolved, the sooner they're off your plate, and the less likely you are to get that second invoice, the second copy anyway. For additional insights on invoices, we've got a playlist of a few short videos. A link will appear to that momentarily to the left. If you like this episode, by the way, we always appreciate those thumbs up and shares.